Andrea Lynn Hayslette was born to parents Bill and Selma on March 6, 1964, and grew up in Rockville, Maryland. After high school, she attended East Tennessee State University as an art major. She later switched her major to marketing and communications, but returned to Rockville when she was 9 hours short of getting her degree. In 1987, she and her parents moved to Murrells Inlet, south of the popular tourist destination Myrtle Beach. She then enrolled at Coastal Carolina University before transferring to the University of South Carolina in Columbia. While in South Carolina, she met Larry Hayslette, and the two eventually married. By the spring of 1993, Andrea was back at Coastal Carolina University, where she was a straight-A student. She was also living in the Deer Track Villas apartments in Surfside Beach, south of Myrtle Beach, with Larry and their two children, Ryan and Katie. However, their relationship was very tumultuous, and in 1990, he was convicted of domestic violence. She said Larry attacked her while she was in the shower by pushing her down and locking her inside the bathroom for 2 hours. He then tried to kick her out of the apartment while she was naked. On April 24, 1993, Andrea's parents were at Disney World with their oldest child, Ryan, when Selma tried calling her, but strangely received no answer. Worried, she began calling around, but no one had seen her. When Selma and Bill returned to Surfside, they found Larry and the youngest daughter, Katie, at the apartment, but Andrea was still nowhere to be found. 4 days later, on April 28th, when there was still no sign of her, Selma called the Horry County Police Department and reported her missing after Larry refused to. Investigators learned that she was last seen at her apartment. They were also suspicious of Larry, who seemed unconcerned with his wife's disappearance. When they arrived at the apartment, they found her Chevrolet truck parked outside, along with her Dodge van. Inside, they found her jewelry, ATM card, and clothes. The only items missing were her purse, suitcase, toothbrush, and some personal belongings. She never showed up to her school finals and never picked up her paycheck from work. 6 weeks after her disappearance, Larry moved to West Virginia, leaving the kids in the care of Andrea's parents. They would later legally adopt the children and change their granddaughter's name. I'm not sure why they changed her name, but it could be because she continued having nightmares for years after her mother's disappearance. She would tell her grandparents such things as, "Daddy hurt Mommy," "Daddy threw Mommy in the bushes," and "Daddy took a shovel and put dirt on Mommy." Investigators are certain she witnessed the murder of her mother. In 1995, Larry was arrested and convicted for trying to sell Andrea's truck after he forged her name on the title. He was then sentenced to 1 to 10 years in prison. The following year, he was finally charged with Andrea's murder, but the charges were dropped in 1997 due to lack of evidence and the fact that Katie's testimony was inadmissible in court. Sadly, as of 2024, Andrea is still missing, and this case remains unsolved. Brandy Renee Hanna was born on November 16, 1972. She was described as a shy and quiet individual who was very close with her family. In 2005, 32-year-old Brandy was living in Charleston, South Carolina, working as a waitress at Alex's restaurant, and had been in a relationship with Michael Ray McAdams, who went by Ray, for about 6 years. She broke the relationship off after becoming involved with his friend Garland Eugene Langford, who went by Zeke. In April 2005, Zeke and she moved into an apartment together on Florida Avenue. Less than a month later, on May 6, 2005, Zeke moved out. Then on Friday, May 20th, while at work, Brandy got a phone call on the restaurant's phone and was visibly upset afterward. She told one of her customers that she was afraid of someone, but never said who that person was. Brandy got off work shortly before 3 p.m. and was given a ride home by an acquaintance. She had big plans for the weekend. First, she was going to buy a bathing suit later that night, and then she was headed to the beach on Saturday, and then breakfast with her mother and brother on Sunday. Once home, she spoke with her mother, Donna, at 5:50 p.m., and then sent a couple of text messages, one at 8 to her friend Amy, who she had shopping plans with, and one at 10:19 p.m. When Amy arrived at her apartment at 10:30 p.m. for their planned shopping trip, Brandy never came to the door. Believing she was asleep, she left. After that, every call to her cell phone went straight to voicemail. Donna kept trying to call her all weekend, but Brandy's phone remained off. This was strange to Donna because Brandy was known for constantly being on her phone. On Sunday, May 22nd, Donna went by her apartment after she missed breakfast plans, but once again, Brandy failed to come to the door. The next day, after she missed work, Zeke let Donna inside the apartment. Once inside, she found all of Brandy's belongings except for her cell phone. At that point, they called the police and reported her missing. However, the police refused to file the report until May 27th. Investigators believe she left her apartment voluntarily, especially since her cell phone was missing. A female neighbor came forward and reported seeing Brandy getting into a red truck with white stripes on the side and a white hockey mask strapped to the front between 9 and 9:30 p.m. Both Ray and Zeke drove red trucks that were work vehicles for the plumbing company they worked for. Over the next few days, investigators received at least 3 anonymous calls that pointed to Ray being the person who picked Brandy up that night. On June 1st, Zeke requested Donna pack up and move all of her stuff out, which she did. When police questioned Zeke, he said that he and Brandy had plans that night, but he had to work late and never saw her, nor was he at the apartment. However, investigators obtained his timesheets and found that he actually clocked out at 4 p.m. In 2016, he was re-interviewed, and this time, he contradicted those statements by saying he might have gone to her apartment that evening and spent time with her. He also admitted to making the tip calls that put the blame on Ray. He was then subsequently charged with obstruction of justice and received 2 years in jail and 2 years of probation. The same year, Ray's father told investigators that he heard Brandy had been sold to drug dealers in Houston to pay off Zeke's debt, but this has never been confirmed. In April of 2006, Ray died of a heart attack, and in 2013, Brandy was legally declared dead. Unfortunately, as of 2024, she is still missing, and this case remains unsolved. Norma Lanyon Jackson was born in 1935 and grew up in Greenville, South Carolina. She remained in Greenville and had 3 children that she raised by herself. On October 11, 1978, 43-year-old Norma was working as a night clerk at the Cabana Inn in downtown Greenville. Before her shift started, she called her 21-year-old daughter, Tracy, who had recently moved out on her own, to have a quick chat. Sadly, this would be the last time she would ever talk to her mother. When the motel manager, Judy Martin, arrived the next morning, shortly before 7 a.m., she found Norma's body in the lobby area. She had sadly been stabbed to death. Investigators believe robbery was the motive because $250 was missing from the cash register. While buttons on her blouse had been ripped off, they didn't find any signs of a sexual assault. The buttons most likely came off when the attacker grabbed her. Investigators estimated that she was murdered sometime between 12:40 and 12:45 a.m. on Friday, October 12th. The reason they know she was alive at 12:40 is because the operator of the restaurant connected to the motel called her at 12:40 a.m. to say he was bringing her a bill to be added to the motel bill of a guest. When he arrived 5 minutes later, the door was locked and he couldn't get in. Multiple people had stopped by the motel that night, but also found the door locked and left after being unable to get in. The key that is used to lock the door was later found in an iron grate-covered gutter in the motel. It's believed that after the suspect murdered Norma and took the cash, he grabbed the key and locked the door on his way out. They also found her car running outside, but believe she did that herself before the murder due to the battery trouble she was having. Apparently, she was going out every few hours to start it so the battery would recharge. It's likely the killer followed her back in. Unfortunately, it's now been over 45 years since Norma was murdered, and as of 2024, this case remains unsolved. Shanta Marie Johnson was born on January 3, 1989, to a drug-addicted mother and sadly tested positive for cocaine at birth. By 1992, 3-year-old Shanta and her younger brother Michael were unfortunately in the care of foster parents Susan and Willie Johnson in Fayetteville, North Carolina. They had even started the adoption process for both children, but it was being held up because DSS didn't have legal custody of the children yet. On May 5, 1992, Shanta was taken to Duke University Medical Center for an assessment. They noted that she was starting to display physical and mental issues and was subsequently classified as a special needs child. The next month, in July of 1992, the Johnsons drove the kids 2 hours south to Myrtle Beach to eat crab legs on Restaurant Row. On July 19th, they stopped at a Kmart at the Briarcliff Mall in Myrtle Beach, and Willie waited with 2-year-old Michael while Susan went inside with Shanta. At approximately 3:30 p.m., Susan reported Shanta missing, saying she was last seen near the toy department. However, when investigators checked Kmart's surveillance to try and figure out who abducted her, they were shocked to see that Susan had entered the store alone. Not only that, but she was only in there for 14 seconds before going to the customer service desk to report the disappearance. Investigators at the time didn't immediately have the footage and quickly put their focus on Shanta's birth family, who was holding a family reunion in Myrtle Beach that same weekend. They put all their faith in the foster parents. I found multiple newspaper articles that quoted FBI Special Agent Don Myers as saying this about the Johnsons: "These are good church people who genuinely wanted children. As you will soon find out, these were not good people." Once investigators ruled out all the relatives at the family reunion, they turned their attention back to Susan, who they now suspected had lied to them. She was questioned about the surveillance footage and the fact that Shanta was not seen on the video. Her response was, "We just went around some people and went in." As investigators continued to look into Susan and the alleged kidnapping, they learned about the abuse that Shanta had endured. Her babysitter told them that at one point she had seen severe burns on Shanta's buttocks. When asked what happened, Shanta said she was burned with hot grease. Susan, on the other hand, tried to say it was a sunburn. It was also revealed that the same doctors at Duke, who assessed her physical and mental issues, also noticed bruises and scratches on her body. They noted that she was extremely fearful and had bitten her fingernails until they bled. A follow-up appointment was scheduled so doctors could reassess her, but Susan canceled it right before she disappeared. In July of 1995, 3 years after the disappearance, 43-year-old Susan was charged with felony child abuse. I was not able to find out if she was convicted or not. Around the same time, 2 hours east of Fayetteville, in Pender County, North Carolina, investigators had a cadaver dog search some property the Johnsons owned. Near the road, the dog was alerted to the smell of human remains, but no body was found. Investigators now believe that Susan murdered Shanta, buried her body on the property, and then later moved it. Did Shanta's special needs become too much for the Johnsons? Did they go to Myrtle Beach that weekend because they knew about the family reunion and thought it might be a good cover for her disappearance, or was that a coincidence? As a side note, the family reunion was an annual event that had taken place since 1989, so it's possible they were aware of it. Right after Shanta's disappearance, Michael was removed from the Johnsons' care and placed with another family. Sadly, as of 2024, Shanta is still missing, and this case remains unsolved. Clifton Carlisle Harris Jr. was born on December 29, 1948, in Charleston, South Carolina. After graduating from James Island High School, he enrolled at the University of South Carolina, where he earned a bachelor's degree in education. He then spent the next 33 years teaching history at First Baptist Church School. Clifton loved history, and it showed in his classroom, as well as the tours he provided around downtown Charleston. On August 19, 2006, at 3:30 a.m., police responded to a call about gunfire and a vehicle blocking traffic at 76 Murray Boulevard. This area is called the Battery and is known as a historical part of town with very expensive homes. It's also near the school where Clifton taught. When officers arrived, they found 57-year-old Clifton slumped over in his driver's seat with the engine running and the windows down. Sadly, he had been shot to death. Because of the position of his car, they believe he was trying to flee from his killer prior to being shot. They also believe he parked along the sidewalk near the water before the attack occurred. Unfortunately, the crime appeared to be random and was possibly a robbery gone wrong. This has made solving it even more difficult. Also, since he didn't live in the area, they are unsure why he was there that time of night. Sadly, as of 2024, his murder remains unsolved.